All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody. As you are joining in, let us know where you're watching from. As always explained, I can't see, even though you're a regular, I can't see where you're watching from since we're streaming on multiple platforms. So I want to know your name and where you're watching from so we can know who's with us. And today we have Coach JJ with us.
Hey
Uh,
guys.
yeah, my favorite coach. And we're going to be having a very, I should say, much needed conversation, right? Something that we have
Yep.
to bring to the table. Today, weight loss medications like Wegovy and Ozempic are like hot cakes, right? They're just flying off the shelf. So we, of course, we try to bring a holistic approach in guiding you towards information that's factual, helpful, and looking at all sides. So what we're going to do is look at the facts. We're going to talk about these weight loss medications and their pros, their cons, and most importantly, alternatives. Is there alternative, to weight loss? Because I think a lot of people struggle with weight loss, and they're looking for that quick fix because nothing else seems to be working. So definitely watch to the end as we give some practical tips on what you can do if you're struggling with weight loss, and you want to find that you can finally reach your goals. Okay. So yeah, as you guys are coming in, let us know where you're watching from, your name, whether or not you're a regular with us on the channel. I always like to give that as a intro. So before we go into the pros and the cons of our show, Joanne, I think it's good for the people to know how these medications work, just briefly, because you don't need to be a scientist, you don't need to be a chemist for the medications to work, right? Understanding them,
Yeah,
but it's helpful to know how they work, right? Would you
sure.
agree? So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Uh a lot of a lot all the medical interventions that we have work better when people understand why we're telling them to do it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not going to spend too much time on that, but I want to talk about how they work. So, Wegovy, Ozempic, basically how they work are mimic a chemical complex. So GLP-1, you probably have seen GLP-1 in advertisements, GLP-1 agonist. That's what it is. It mimics a chemical your body already makes. This is really important to understand. Okay, so it's not some brand new invention, manufacturing product that a man has discovered that has a secret to weight loss. It's something your body's already making that mankind has manufactured a very similar chemical structure to mimic its effects. The chemical compound GLP-1 that your body can produce from as it has effects on multiple tissues in the body, and that's why it's such an effective drug when it comes to weight loss, because it approaches weight loss in different ways. So it works on the brain to suppress your appetite, right? The chemical structure also works on the stomach to make it feel this distended, so you have that feeling of fullness, right? It works on the intestines, right, and tissues in the body to make you feel like you're full, and this because your the movement of food through the intestine starts to slow down. That's why a lot of the side effects of nausea, upset stomach, diarrhea, constipation, people feel, because the slowing down of the movement of food in their stomach. Okay, so different ways it works, and that's why it's so effective. It approaches different tissues. So what can people, and I like having you on this in this conversation, Coach JJ, because you research everything. If anybody doesn't know Coach JJ, man, she looks into everything. Okay, she does not take anything at face value, and I love that. I love that. So let's see. Let's start with the pros. I know we're going to go into the cons for sure, but what can people who are starting on this medication expect? As far as benefits.
well, I mean certainly there's the rapid weight loss component, because you're doing three different things as you're talking about the how it works. you know uh so it tells your brain you're not hungry, so like you're not snacking on foods. And so one actual benefit for some people could be they have a reduction in their grocery bill because they're not, or their fast food expense for the week because they're not stopping and getting that burger because they just don't feel like they need it or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you're consuming less food, so there's a calorie restriction there. And so when that happens, what your body's going to do is start burning your own fat because it needs some kind of fuel, right?
Mm-hmm.
There has been research indicating that for some people that have rheumatoid arthritis, that this can be beneficial because there's some inflammatory pathway that it shares with the GLP-1 receptor. And by encouraging the GLP-1 helps cut down that inflammatory process. And so people experience an improvement in their symptoms. That's still being researched, but there has been preliminary research showing that for some subset of people it works.
And if I just want to jump in there, that's a good point, because that same pathway, that inflammation pathway, is probably why some studies are showing that Wegovy can reduce heart disease. Right?
Well, that's
Okay.
that's another thing that, Wegovy in particular, I think it was called the SELECT trial, where they tested and they found a fairly significant reduction in cardiovascular events in the patients that were on this versus the control group.
Yeah.
But I'm not exactly so sure that that's necessarily a function of the chemical compound itself.
Okay.
I think it might be in some ways related to just the reduction in inputs, like food inputs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I got to do a little more thinking on that one.
Okay.
There have been reports where people said they feel a little less anxious, a little less depressed. And that could be a secondary effect from seeing the weight loss on yourself, that you look in the mirror and you start seeing the change. And you're like, oh, okay, I don't have to be so anxious about my physical appearance. I'm looking better. So that could be a benefit. It could be that this inflammatory pathway that it might have an effect on might also be the cause of anxiety and depression for some people, because we know that, like diabetes is, and depression and anxiety are definitely linked. We have tons of research that demonstrate this.
Yeah.
And then there's research occurring right now indicating that they're seriously looking at these medications to be allowed for on-label use for the treatment of substance use disorders.
I've heard that. Yep.
Alcoholism or cocaine addiction. Those are the two big ones that I've heard about. And so, hey, if the medication, helps with that, wow.
Yeah.
And if you're a person, maybe you're not even really very overweight, but you're having trouble controlling your diabetes and you like to drink too much, this medication can help you maybe kick that habit, which will then in turn definitely benefit your liver and your ability to manage your diabetes. So there's some definite pros there.
That's a good list of pros, right? And of course we'd have to add, these are diabetes medications. A lot of people think that they're weight loss medications, but they're actually diabetes medications. So if you have diabetes, there's the pro that your diabetes can improve. Studies show a modest reduction in A1C from 0.8 to 1.6 reduction. So there's that benefit too. So now that we've probably exhausted the pros, I don't know. And before we leave the pros, I want to know, anyone watching, leave a comment if you're taking the medication now and you receive a benefit, maybe, especially if it's a benefit maybe we didn't mention, right? So we want to hear from the people, guys. Don't be shy. Leave a comment if you're taking this medication or somebody who's taking a medication and you receive benefits from it. Let's go into the cons now, right? So what are the drawbacks? Coach JJ, I know you're ready to go in on this one.
Well,
yeah.
It goes into the mechanism of action that we were talking about. One of them in particular, this one has me very concerned.
Yeah.
The slowing down of the digestive process, because this chemical in high doses tells your stomach and intestine muscles, don't do your peristalsis, which is the action when it squeezes and it's churning your food and then pushing it out and absorbing. We have a lot of reports where people are experiencing vomiting and they're experiencing constipation after starting these medications.
Yeah.
There was one study, a case study or something, where they had a patient come into the hospital and they were like all kinds of just backed up and everything. And they decided to go ahead and do an investigative, where they go in and cut you open and look and see what's in there. They found food in this person that was 4 days old.
Yeah.
Yep. And there have been all kinds of other different reports. I will spare the gross details. But in my opinion, as a healthcare professional, I'm hearing reports of people having the stomach paralysis stuff, even after having stopped this medication for a year.
Wow. Didn't know about that. Wow.
Why?
That's crazy.
That's
crazy.
So, in a clinical aspect, does the benefit really outweigh the risk of that? Because if you think about all that undigested food and the bacteria, it's sitting there, it's fermenting. How is it not going to damage the thin lining inside, your intestines and stuff like that, which then opens you up to a whole host of all kinds of stuff, including getting like just a massive infection that requires you to be hospitalized and could potentially put you in the ICU.
Yep. And then just even on a less severe note, just think about the fact that studies show on average 50% of people who stop it within a year because of constipation, because of the diarrhea, because of the nausea. They just can't take, and it's a very common side effect. And actually, according to studies, within 2 years, 70% are not using it. So many people who start it aren't able to continue it, right? And what happens when you stop the medication?
You gain all the weight back plus some. Your blood sugar becomes clinically uncontrolled.
Yeah.
Unless you pair the medication with other stuff, which I know we will get to.
Yeah. So there's that. There's the alternative of replacing, or I should say, weaning yourself into a healthier lifestyle with the goal of cutting off these medications, right?
And I like to look at it like this. Sometimes you just definitely need a medication. You of all people know this, being physician's assistant, and you have this condition, you have to take this medication kind of forever because this is the only way we control the condition. Yeah. Essentially, this is what happens in type 1 diabetes. You have to take the insulin because your body just doesn't make it.
Yeah. So if you're a diabetic, unless the diabetes goes away, you always need the medication. If you're overweight, the problem is, unless you replace it with a healthier lifestyle, you're also always going to need this medication, which only exposes you to more risks and side effects.
Yeah. And I mean, there's more cons. Yeah. And this one, doesn't exactly sound severe, but it can be. And this is some of that weight that you're losing is muscle mass. And that becomes a problem as we age because that loss of muscle mass, it actually decreases the amount of spaces where our body can shove sugar when it needs to.
And that makes sense because a lot of people report like a lot of weight loss in a short period of time, which is unnatural. Like, it's not natural to lose 30 pounds in a month.
No.
Right? Unless you're on chemotherapy or, right?
Yeah.
So your body is almost like in survival mode and say, okay, well, you're slimmed down a little bit too much, buddy. Let's start burning some of that muscle, to give you energy.
Especially for our older folks who are over the age of 65.
Yeah.
you got to hold on to all that muscle mass that you possibly
Yeah.
can to prevent you from developing conditions like osteoporosis. And then like if you trip over something and like fall, you don't want to break a hip,
Mhm.
right? So
Yep.
and I'm hearing providers talking about how that those things happen literally because of the lack of appropriate
Muscle.
nourishment.
Yep.
And this has become such a problem that the industry has now come out with a drink that's specifically designed for people who take these medications so that you can get your nutrition in. I have an idea. How about just eat food?
Yeah.
Good, healthy,
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
whole food, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Once again, I digress because I know we'll talk about that here in a bit. But
No, but it's
I
good to
feel like
mention. And also, as we're talking, again, I want to know if anyone has had to stop the medication. Anyone watching? So let us know in the comment section if you started and had to stop, for any reason at all. So yeah, so we have the problem that people start and aren't able to continue very often, not even after a year. We sometimes within months. Then you have the problem, the weight coming back when you stop, right? And then,
well,
yeah.
can I share my husband's account?
Experience. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So my husband was a little overweight, but not much.
Okay.
But his blood sugar started like really going out of control. I started wondering if he maybe he was like a latent onset type 1 or something, going on.
Yeah.
His primary care doctor didn't want to do anything. She said, I'm sending you to endocrinologist.
Okay.
They went ahead and put him on Trulicity, which is a cousin of Ozempic and Wegovy.
Okay.
And he took that for about 3 months. And it kind of helped the blood sugar. I don't really know that it helped.
Okay.
Well, actually, I take that back. He used to be a guy that would eat 2 giant dinner plates of food.
Okay.
Like he was always going for seconds.
Yeah.
And he would be, at 11 o'clock at night, he would grab himself a giant bowl of cereal and top it with ice cream or, just and I would wake up
go in. Yeah.
and catch him doing that, right?
Yeah.
Since he took that medication, he doesn't do like that at all anymore.
Uh-huh.
Now his appetite is way less to where sometimes I'm like, have you eaten enough?
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, yeah. I'm just not hungry. And he is now, I think when he got put on that medication, he might have been maybe 220 pounds. Okay. I would estimate that he's down to like 190.
Okay. Now. So he lost quite a bit. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have also noticed muscle mass is lost.
Okay.
My husband is 55, 56. I don't know. I can't remember.
Years just go by, man. I feel you. The years just go by. At a certain point, it's another year.
My husband has been a mechanic for 30 years. He works on heavy diesel, so he's not, a sedentary person. He's up and he's
developed muscle mass.
And he had, the strongest man I've ever met. He's Popeye, right?
Yeah.
I see.
Wow.
Loss of muscle mass.
You can see the muscle mass loss.
Having had clinical training, I am qualified to say that I see that. And so I'm worried, like, is that going to continue?
That's a pretty serious concern. And it's not the only one, right? So there are other serious concerns. So let's move on to those. Have you heard about any risks when it comes to cancer?
Well, and actually that was when I first became aware of these drugs, and this was close, I think I'm going to say like 17 years ago. I was working as a nurse for a physician. We had this lady patient come in, and she had been prescribed Byetta, which was the first ever version of this kind of medication.
Yeah.
And she would always be getting UTIs, and she would just come see the doc that I worked for because she loved him to death. Mm-hmm. And I started noticing she was getting skinnier and skinnier. And I was like, dang, that medicine must really work. But then she started complaining about having low blood sugar. Anyway, long story short, like a year after she had been on that medication, she ended up developing thyroid cancer.
Wow. Really? Really?
And it metastasized.
And what's on the actually, that being said, let me grab my phone because I meant to show the Hippocrates app that shows all the side effects on, and the fact that that's a black box warning. Let me see if I can find it. I'm gonna have to get up for a second.
Yeah, the they say, oh, well, don't worry about it unless you have a family history. Well, you know what? Sometimes that family history start with you.
So this, yeah, exactly. And this is the problem I find when I look at, so a lot of people don't know that we doctors carry apps to look at side effects, and they're pretty long. If you look, I don't know if it could show up on the screen, but this is the black box warning, right? Thyroid cancer risk. It's actually one of the things that pop up in bold for all our patients, for us to tell our patients. So this app for doctors tells you, make sure your patient knows the risk of thyroid cancer. Now, of course, this is based on trials on mice, right? Not human trials, and that mechanism isn't really clear. But how often, Coach JJ, have you heard, if you have thyroid cancer and you took XYZ drug, and then you may be subject to financial compensation, right?
I am wanting to
some public announcement that if you've taken this drug, then you might be able to join on a lawsuit, right? The problem,
Louis, they're doing this with Tylenol for pregnant women who now have children that have ADHD and autism and weird symptoms. So I'm one of those ladies.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to that.
Well, we have to realize that these are businesses, and their number one goal is not your health.
Yeah.
They don't care about your weight loss.
I want to talk about that.
So when you look at this, and like there's lists of serious side effects, right? We talked about some of them, all right, and common reactions. It's a long list, right? And it goes on and on and on.
Well, and notice on there one of the side effects, it says pancreatitis.
Yep, pancreatitis.
Well, your pancreas is already irritated because you have diabetes. Why do you want to do something that's going to irritate it further?
Yep. And to think about it, the thing that's crazy is that these are based on short-term studies. So who knows what's going to cook up in the long term? And we're telling patients, start this medication with no end date. There's not most doctors aren't prescribing it with the thought of coming off of it. I kind of liken it to one who's addicted to opiates and who starts on a Suboxone, right? And they want to know, how long am I going to be going to Suboxone clinics, right? When can I come off Suboxone? And these specialists, like opiate specialists, substance abuse centers, they're not trained to take them off the medication. They're not trained to have a plan to wean them off Suboxone.
Nope.
Because
that's another point.
You want it. The point is to keep you on it, right? I'm not to saying that some people don't need it, right? But it just makes, knowing people who suffer from opiate addiction, it's just almost the same as weight loss drugs. They're not really concerned with you stopping their drugs. And if there's side effects, well,
you learn to live with them until you reach a point where you're sick with other stuff.
Yeah.
And then you end up running into problems.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's a business, multi-billion. I can't remember how much I think the projection is in the next 10 years, but I'm talking like billions. I mean, multiple billions. I think, if I'm not mistaken, like $20 billion or something like that. It's conservative.
Yeah.
But their main concern, I think our viewers need to understand, is that these drugs, you can lose weight fast, but is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk?
What is your exit strategy?
Yeah, what's your exit strategy? It's an unnatural way to lose weight, so you don't want to be on it long term. What is your plan? Is there alternatives? But before we go to the alternatives, right? Because we want to tell the people alternatives. Are there any other cons that we should talk about?
Well, So for me, in addition to doing, clinical hands-on work with patients, I also have training in public health. So I look at
Okay,
population as a whole,
good.
and I look at the economics and finance and policy structure of healthcare institutions.
Hmm.
Um, I am now seeing an absolute explosion on Facebook of advertisements from places that aren't known pharmacies, known clinical institutions, offering to make compounded versions of this for a third of the cost. There are groups on Facebook that are messaging people privately, hey, do you want this medication? Pay me, $150 and I'll ship it to your house.
Yeah.
This scares me in terms of public health because you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
How can you
Wow.
verify that what they're sending you
All right.
is the actual
It's
product?
about to become a street drug.
And there have been reports of people making labels, getting vials, making labels to make it look official, but they're filled with saline water.
Wow. Wow.
And
Yeah.
and then when I start seeing the news media clamor around it, when I start seeing the famous
Superstars advertising
Hollywood
it.
people, like Kim Kardashian, are you
Yeah.
kidding? Now there are some celebrities that
Mhm.
do use it and they actually needed it and
Yeah.
maybe still do.
Yeah.
One of them is she's this Australian girl, and she did like a musical. I can't remember the name of it. She's heavy set,
I'm horrible with superstar names. Like, I don't know.
but she's so funny and she's really awesome. But she really really struggled with food,
Mhm.
and I'm sure maybe some of our viewers have heard of the term food noise,
Oh, okay.
where it's like the food is loud,
Mhm.
in this almost in the same way like an alcoholic should not walk into a bar with
Yeah.
a million bottles of booze, right?
Yeah.
A person that struggles with food should not walk into the all you can eat buffet, or they come into the break room at work and there's the donuts and there's the pizza and there's the punch and there's the ice and all the stuff. And some people it makes them nuts, right? And they just can't resist the urge. I think when people have that level of an issue, medication might really 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 be beneficial and necessary.
Mhm.
But once again, all of that must be paired with
With the side
the
effect.
and when I see that these Hollywood people, these celebrities and stuff, are advertising for the company, they're
Yeah.
making
Right.
money.
Yeah. You think. Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, and now they're taking this to where they're having little shell companies set up. They hire a physician assistant or nurse practitioner. They go set up shop at your local gym or fitness center, and
Mhm.
you can come in and get the
Wow.
prescription. Like they're so to me,
Mhm.
that looks like targeting.
Targeting. Yep. 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 It is. And usually when that happens, they don't have our best interests at heart.
No.
I want to show one last con before we go into the alternative
Yeah.
that works for everyone. uh, the cost, right?
Oh God.
So the cost of these medications, right? So U.S. retail price after discounts, and this is actually higher than from the last time I left. I think it went up $15,000, almost $16,000 a year for Wegovy, right? Now this is something to think about. Okay, so this is what people are paying on a retail cost for these medications. Really expensive. If you look at, and this is something Dr. Neil Barnard put together, and so I had to share it. Actually, let me move it so you guys could see everything. So, for the cost of Wegovy, you could have a dietitian visit every week, $600 a month. A bag of groceries, like so you're thinking about those meal delivery systems, right? To bring you healthy meals for about $500 a month. You got to pay for a gym membership, and that's a fancy gym, not $80 a month, because most gyms are cheaper than that. And you can have some leftover vacation money, and that will come up to $1,300. So for less than the cost of a Wegovy, you can do all that.
Yeah, and
That should
that's
tell you something, right?
well,
that should
and
tell you something.
with regard to the cost, what I've heard, through the outlets that I listen to and stay on top of this with, really, it's the cost is actually directly related to the auto injector pen. So like somebody's friends with, somebody's cousin that works they have like some kind of deal going on. And these compounding pharmacies are appealing to people because, your pharmacy said this was going to cost $900. Well, we could just give you our version.
Yeah.
And it'll be like $300.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that, and I just heard this today, Australia has started cracking down on the compounding pharmacies. They are no longer allowed to do it. They're being issued cease and desist letters and all that. That has not happened here in the US. There have been a few, but there have been so many that have popped up that the FDA cannot keep pace.
Yeah. So to summarize, there's the problem of you being off the medication because you can't stand the side effects and gaining all the weight back, losing muscle mass, the risk that you expose yourself to common and serious side effects just from short-term studies. So in the future, there could be more. There's the fact that this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that does not really care about your health. They care about the dollars at the end of the day. And so with all that being said, is there alternatives? You're watching like, okay, Lewis, okay, Coach JJ, I get it, but I've been struggling with weight loss and this seems to be working so far. The alternative to this really that we, and Coach JJ, I know you take this approach too, is a holistic approach that doesn't just look at diet alone. This is something I want everyone to pay attention to. You are not just the collection of choices you've made for yourself. You are also the collection of choices made for you. 100%. You are not just the collection of things you've done. You are also the collection of things done to you. A lot of us are struggling with traumas or past hurts that need to be addressed, that make it very difficult to make sound decisions in the now. And we need to get help, right? We need to prioritize our mental health, whether it be seeking therapy, the help of a licensed psychologist, counseling. We need to address that for sure. Okay. Of course, going now on the practical side, the diet, finding yourself increasing the foods that do the very thing that GLP-1 agonists do, suppress your appetite and allow you to eat more food while weighing less. There's only one category of foods that does that, and that's whole food plant-based foods. Foods from plant-based origins in their whole state, fiber-rich foods. Increase your consumption of fiber-rich foods. This is the key to lasting weight loss, because in doing so, you're finding that you could eat more. It's not restrictive, okay? But I know even that can be hard. So as you're prioritizing your mental health, making the right changes in your diet, some people need support, right? So seeking out the support of a community of people like a diabetes support group that Coach JJ has. Finding help from a health coach, right? Who can guide you towards the changes you can make and making them stick, right? Knowing and doing two different things. Sometimes we need support from others, okay? Yeah. So with that being said, Coach JJ, can you tell people how they can work with you as a lifestyle coach that takes a holistic approach to weight loss? How can we reach out to you if we want to work with you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. I don't have a fancy website because I tried to do it myself and I broke it.
Okay.
But you can just look at my name, Joanne Voorhees Collins, on Facebook, and you're welcome to send me a message.
And your name is right there. Yep.
And for folks specifically with diabetes that are brand new and starting out and don't have any real idea about what they should do to get a handle on things because their doctor didn't tell them, I have a book available on Amazon. It's called the Diabetes 101 Playbook Journal, and it's actually meant for
Diabetes 101 Playback Journal. Good book.
Playbook Journal, yep. And it's meant for you to be able to track what's going on with yourself on a daily basis for 100 days to see what your blood sugar is doing. What kind of foods are you eating? Do you notice anything interesting or weird or off about what happens to you after you eat a certain thing or after you do a certain activity? And just got, practical advice on the very, very basics of effective diabetes management.
Very good. Wow, that's
So,
awesome. So thanks for sharing that. So you know how to reach Coach JJ. One thing we also want to let you know, you can get free meal plans with this QR codes. So if you're really struggling, you want to know, okay, how do I put together healthy meals that promote weight loss? Scan the QR code, and you get a free 30-day meal plan with Diabetes 180. If you're watching on your phone, just screenshot it, and then you could scan it later. All right, so that's it right there for anyone who's interested. Coach JJ, it's not gonna be the last time we talk together. All right.
yeah, we could talk for hours.
Yeah. So it's been 35 minutes, but it feels like we've been talking for 5 minutes. All right. So as always, beloved, I pray above all things they may prosper and be in good health, and even as your soul prospers.